Okay, welcome back. Lesson 4, market analysis and site selection. Crucial stages in helping your clients and as an investor, selecting a site, market analysis, looking at all the details in and around the community and the greater area of the property. So, where have we been? We're in lesson 4. We've obviously finished lessons 1 through 3. We know a little bit about commercial real estate, the what, the why, the who, the 4 major asset types. We've talked about leasing versus sales. We just spent a big session in investment analysis and all the details in and around creating value and NOI and value and cap rates and internal rates of return. And now we're gonna look a little bit, take a step back and look at market analysis and site selection. So this comes into play when you're possibly helping tenants locate, retail tenants locating in certain markets. For example, our coffee tenant that has 20 locations that's looking to add the 21st. Market analysis, site selection is going to be key and crucial for that particular tenant. So here's an overview of the chapter that we'll be going through, the lesson. We're going to be talking about physical definition of the market, defining the market. We're going to talk about regional and neighborhood analysis. We're going to look at market location, talk about location analysis for site selection. We're going to then talk about the physical site, the land, the buildings, and talk about analysis in and around that. We're then going to look at rental rate analysis, talk about how we can do a survey and determine do a deeper dive into what those market rates might be. We'll do property sale analysis a bit. We're going to talk about highest and best use, what generates the highest dollar amount for the property. We're going to then finish up with rent versus buy analysis and then give you some research resources. And there's a lot of them out there for you to be able to choose from and go help you with all of the market analysis. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about the physical definition of the market. Defining or describing the market depends on the type of asset. So again, we've got those 4 asset classes. We got multifamily, industrial, office, and retail. And how we do analysis is going to differ depending on which property type we're looking at. So what's unique for multifamily is not going to vary directly for an industrial or office or retail. So multifamily analysis, and these are just some highlights of what's important in multifamily. Obviously, the market supply and demand, how many units are currently in the market, how many are available, how many are being built, how many are going to be built, all very important demand. Unit mix, what are popular unit types, what's generating the highest rent per square foot, as we were looking at the Knox Street template and that property, that case study, looking at studios are renting for a higher rent per square foot than the 3 bedrooms are. So we need to take that into consideration when we're doing our market analysis for multifamily. Location to a university or proximity to schools, the walkability, all very important for multifamily. Location to an employment center and proximity to services, hospital, retail services, shopping, waterfront, park, whatever it might be, all very important when you're looking at the market analysis for a multifamily unit. And then another major factor clearly is construction costs versus rental rates. Is it even pertinent? Does it even make sense to build a brand new apartment complex, a multifamily structure in your market area? Do the rental rates justify the cost to construct? Or in your market, can you buy a property well below the reproduction cost? And so that's something that we want to look at and consider as we look at that. Industrial, clearly important factors for industrial property types are going to be ingress and egress. Trucks coming, going, employees coming and going, all very, very important to and from. Major, proximity to major transportation, airports, interstate, maybe you're close to a border. I'm close to the Canadian border, and having close to, on an interstate, close to the Canadian border is very, very important. And so that's just something that you're going to want to look at and take into consideration that drive time, that distance between trucks moving to and from a warehouse to another warehouse to a consumer to a business is very, very important. And so traffic and traffic times are extremely important in the industrial market. Proximity to an employment center, having the correct zoning, and depending on your market area and the zoning codes that rule your industrial areas, you may or may not be able to do certain types of manufacturing in one industrial zone. We have a general manufacturing zone and then a heavy manufacturing zone. So again, making sure you fully understand the zonings in and around your commercial uses are key. And then the building improvements, a lot of specifics when it comes to, the couple of different types of industrial space. And we talked about this in an earlier lesson about your standard warehouse industrial space versus a flex space, or one that maybe has more office build out or specific uses for that particular type of industrial user. Having grade doors, which are at the same level as the paveway, the driveway, or the main lot, or bay doors, ones that are set up for large trucks to be able to come in and essentially pull right in and distribute out in through those doors into those trucks. And so depending on your types of users, those may or may not be important. And again, items to be taken into consideration in your market analysis. In the office market, again, proximity to retail services, proximity to residential, single-family dwellings, all important. That drive time commute, this is where employees are spending a lot of their time. Ingress and egress, parking, having the appropriate parking ratios so employees aren't having to walk great distances. Office build out, or the tenant improvement build out, TIs as we've called it, are very important. Views and quality of life, all very, very important for office users. And then finally, in the retail market, again, retail is most of the time needing, I would say, really strong exposure, drive-by exposure. Co-tenancy with other tenants may or may not be important. There's an old saying that 2 or 3 or 4 jewelry stores, the more jewelry stores there are within a 1 block, 2 block radius or across the street from each other in a mall, do better because they are co-tenants. They are next to each other. A large grocery anchored center a lot of times will attract other junior boxes or retail boxes that are 20,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet from that 100, 200,000 foot grocery store. So again, just items to keep in mind and to study and look at. Ingress and egress, very, very important. Parking, very important. Density, population densities within a 1, 3, 5 mile radius. And we're going to talk about some resources out there where you can generate these statistics, but we typically look at a 1, a 3, a 5 mile radius, a circle radius around the property. And then we'll also look at drive time radiuses. Maybe we want to know how many people are within a 2-minute drive, a 5-minute drive, or a 15-minute drive. And you can run demographic reports based on drive times. So if you're right off the freeway and you may be maybe only within your 5 mile radius ring is a certain limitation of amount of people within that market, but a 5-minute drive time may take you 10 miles away. I mean, just depends, depending on the type of traffic and infrastructure that currently exists. Also, the average daily traffic, or ADT, is very, very important for your retail uses that rely on people driving by. Your coffee stores, your fast food operators, all rely on heavy average daily traffic. Okay, when we're doing market analysis, after we look at which property type we're doing, we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at a top-down approach to describe the market. And this is the commercial appraiser in me that's looking at kind of the bigger picture and saying, okay, what region do we have? And that's typically maybe the county or maybe it's a state, depending on where you're at. It's the largest area that you would look at. It could be, for us, we have about 250,000 people within our county, and then we're going to look at the larger area or the neighborhood, and that could be very, very specific. It could be a city. It might be an area within a city. Just depends on your market and how big it is. And then we're going to look at the immediate area, and this could be a corridor, a 5-block corridor. It could be maybe a 1-mile long corridor. It just depends. It could be a small little neighborhood. It could be a box, a circle. Just depends. You have to geographically define this market area. Then we're going to as we're going from top down, we're getting further and further micro here. We're going to look at the physical site of the property. What is the site? For Knox Street, it was about a half-acre lot. It was within a multifamily neighborhood within a larger city, which is located within a county. So we look at all those demographics, we get it right down to the site, and we look at the site. And then we look at the specific building or possibly a proposed building if you're helping someone with a piece of land. What are they going to build on it? What type of structure are they going to build on it? What is the building? Is it suitable for the needs that you're looking at? And then within that building, we're going to look at the specific leased units. In the case of Knox, we're looking at the individual apartment units. In the case of the Queen Street industrial property, that was 2 tenants within one building on one lot within an industrial area. So again, each individual unit is what we would look at, and they all have specific criteria and characteristics to each of those individual units. Definition of the market, all things to consider when defining the market. Obviously, we're looking at population, looking at median home prices and values, the average household size, the age. We're looking at what people make within those areas, disposable income. There's a variety of different statistics that you're going to be able to pull within those market areas. And those are all going to be part of the demographics that you can get. So when we're doing this regional overview, we're going to look at the population of that greater area. We're going to look at the infrastructure, transportation corridors, look at what economic development is happening, what's occurring. Are there structures being built in the market? Are there a lot of old, tired, vacant buildings? Is there a brand new development or shopping center that's under construction 3 miles away? Is there a new booming area that's already been emerging and sucking a lot of the tenants and activity out of it? Depends on your market area. You need to look at that. How close are the airports, the roads, border crossings if applicable, recreation facilities, medical? You have a type 1, type 2 hospital, trauma hospital. Is there cancer research centers? I mean, what is available for the community all goes into play into your regional overview. What types of employment are there? Who are the top 5, 10 employers in your market? Are they government? Are they private? What types of industry? Is it tech? Is it industrial? Is it blue collar? Is it white collar? So need to look at all of those different types of aspects. And then finally, what education facilities are there? Do you have a university nearby? Is there a college, a trade school? What options are there for schooling and education? How educated is the labor force in your market? All great examples and why companies may or may not locate within a certain area. Average daily traffic, again, stepping back, mainly for retail. This is typically the 24-hour count, and a lot of times your state, city, municipalities will have average daily traffic counts for all the major and minor roads. And so you're going to want to look. I live in the state of Washington, so I've got a link here for the WASH they call it, traffic counts. You can click on that and research that if you're in the state of Washington area. All the other 49 states, you're going to have to do a little bit of research as to what traffic count options there are out there for you. But I urge you to try to find it, research those numbers, and understand where the traffic is and flowing and what are the trends within those market areas. Population. When we're looking at population, we're looking at the density of the population. So again, if we're looking within a certain city or county, or depending on that area that we're defining, we're going to look at how many people live in that area. What are the demographics? What's the home ownership percentage? Are there more renters or are there more owners? Home ownership on a nationwide level is 63, 64%. Are you higher or lower than that? We have a college town in one of my market areas, and home ownership is only about 50% because a lot of people rent. So again, understanding your market and what drives that market is very important. Income levels, important for retail, expendable goods, disposable income, very, very important. Physical attributes of the population, male versus female, age, employment rates, household size, all go into play into the economics and the demographics of the different property types and the demographics that you'll be utilizing to do your top-down approach. Here is just a quick summation that I did in one market area. It's a 1, 3, 5 mile ring. Obviously, the larger the ring that you do, the more people that are going to exist. This just gives some populations by race, population numbers, some very, very basic demographics. As we continue down, we're going to see a 1, 3, 5 mile ring, and then the total of household size and the percentage. And so we know, again, a little bit more about these market areas, and these numbers are going to be very, very helpful for retailers, for office users, for industrial users. Even multifamily, very, very important to know how many people are renting versus owning within a certain market area, what is the growth rate, and those are all very, very important options for when you're doing new developments or analyzing existing properties. Distance and drive time radius, again, we talked about this. A 1, a 3, 5 mile are relatively common in the market, and so we'll be able to do that. We can look at drive time radiuses, which might be a 1 minute, a 5 minute, a 10, 15 minute drive time radius, and that ring might look a lot differently than just 3 normal rings of 1, 3, 5 miles. So you're going to want to analyze what's the most important demographic and factor for you in doing your market analysis and site selection. Physical site, the land, the building analysis. Again, when we're looking at the physical site, we want to, look at the street exposure. We want to understand the access to the property. Going to look at signage options. Really, the 3 most important things for a retail tenant are going to be that location, that drive time, ingress, egress, parking, signage. All very, very important items when they're looking at determining whether a business will go into that location. If I'm at a cross street and I have full access to the site, that's going to be more beneficial than if I only have right in and right out access only to the street. If I can't make a left-hand turn into that retail establishment, that may limit some of the potential traffic that's coming by that wants to come to my retail establishment. So again, all factors that you need to look at and understand those traffic patterns, specifically when you're helping retail users. Those are very, very important. I've had tenants that have said no to sites because the site didn't have full access, there wasn't a light at the intersection, a variety of options. So just depends on the tenant. Try to get into the mind and the sense of the retail tenant. What are they looking for? Why do they locate in one spot and not another? Why do they locate in certain areas? Look at where fast food operators operate, look at where they locate, and you'll notice that a lot of times they are on major arterials, high average daily traffic counts, and located on corner intersections, which have good ingress and egress. When you're driving by, when the kids are in the back of the car and they're looking for a McDonald's hamburger, they see the sign, they want to pull right in, get easy access. If I have to make a left-hand turn, right-hand turn, go down a side road, I'm probably not going to take that extra 60 seconds to get to that retailer. So easy access, easy ingress and egress, very, very important. Building details. Age of the building, obviously very important. The economic life of the building. The age could be 50 years, 100 years old, but it's been renovated multiple times. And so the economic life still has maybe 80% of its life left. And so you want to look at that, understand that part of it. What is the type of building? The physical parts of the building. What does the heating and air conditioning, look like? The HVAC, has it been serviced? When was it last replaced? What are those capital expenditure items that have been or haven't been taken care of or replaced in the last 5 or 10 years? Understanding those. The types of plumbing. Is there plumbing accessible? A lot of times retailers want to have different plumbing put in, restaurant user, whatever it might be. They need access to drains. They need access. So you're going to need to understand where the plumbing is, where the pipes are coming or going from those spaces. An industrial operator that wants to put new floor drains in a food processing business, they're going to need to want to know where that water and sewer is coming in and out of the building. These are all items that you're going to need to know, or at least be able to point to on the plans, or help show a potential tenant or buyer or seller where those things are. General condition of the property, obviously very important. We typically will grade properties on an A, B, C, D schedule. And so again, Class A being really a perfect office, very high office build out, really the best office you can imagine. A B quality is going to be something that tends to be a little bit more suburban with an average office build out, and then down C and D, as you can imagine, get down the list. But that's typically how we'll classify those properties, and you're going to want to look at those and take those into consideration when you're pricing properties and showing those to prospective clients. Rental rate analysis, and we talked about this in an earlier lesson, that this could be a mini business unto its own. Doing a survey, a rental analysis of the market. People want to know what the market is doing. Where is the market? What is the market doing? Is this rate above, below, at market? Is it way below the market and it's a leased fee value? Is it at the market and it's a fee simple value? All things that we need to be able to understand and determine. So we got to look at comparables. What are other similar properties paying? What are those other tenants paying? Let's knock on those doors, talk to brokers. What were the deals being done? You'd be amazed at how much brokers will offer up to you. They'll talk all day long about their deals. So they'll tell you. So we have a list here of kind of a rental rate analysis for you to be able to do, and you'll be able to go through and ask some of those questions on properties and do your own rental rate analysis. How long was the lease? Is it a 3-year lease, a 5-year lease, a 10-year lease? Were there tenant improvements given? TI, allowance? Did they give them some concessions, some free rent? Was the lease structure triple net? Was it gross? Need to fully understand that. What is the lease rate? Obviously very important. What are the triple net rates too, if it is triple rate? If their tenant is paying like the coffee operator that we have as one of our examples, they're paying $35 a square foot. Their triple nets are just over $5 a square foot. If they were paying $10 a square foot for triple nets and $35, that would be obviously a lot more to the bottom line. So maybe another space that has cheaper triple net rates would be more attractive to that tenant. Fully understanding the lease structure and the rates involved. So a separate little tab here on the right-hand side that talks about tenant improvement allowance, and there's some great tools on 42 floors that you can click on and research. There's a great site out there that you can utilize as a resource and get a variety of different definitions. Anything that we're talking about, you can click on that link here and get further details. When we're doing that rental rate analysis, we want to really provide a comparison of the rental and lease rates on a square footage basis. That's how we typically look at things. And so residential, multifamily rates, typically we look at and we compare them on a monthly basis. So in the Knox Street, you saw some rents at $1.40, $1.50 a square foot. Again, that's quoted monthly. Office and retail is typically compared on an annual basis. So when you hear us talk about the coffee operator, that case study, $35 a square foot, that's an annual rate. All of these rates are paid monthly. But in general, the industry quotes rental rates monthly, office and retail on an annual basis. And then industrial space, we go back and we do quote that on a monthly basis. So you'll see 60 cents, 50 cents, $1 a square foot. That's $1 square foot is $12 square foot a year. But when you hear $1 square foot, that's monthly. Now, there are some markets where they do their own thing. So this is in general what I'm seeing on a national basis. So again, look at your market to determine exactly how they're quoting their rates. This is a spreadsheet and a template that we've got for you here that does the rental rate analysis that I was referring to, and it's a rent comparable map. We've got one for each property type, so we've got one for multifamily, for office, for retail and industrial. Mainly the office and industrial and retail are fairly similar. Multifamily is the one that's pretty unique and specific to multifamily. And this will be a guide for you to be able to look at the unit sizes, you know, what the asking rates are, what the average is, and you'll be able to compare and contrast all of the different units, the different unit types, you know, from studios, 1s, 2s, 3 bedrooms, all the way up to whatever you're comparing the property to, and you'll get those comparables, bring them into the spreadsheet and compare them, and then you can kind of rank them based on quality and age and give kind of a general assessment. When you put all the data out, I think the data speaks for itself. And again, in my job, a lot of times I am just reflecting what the market is and educating my clients on where the market is, where I think it's going, if I think that there are some supply and demand issues that are coming into play. But great template for you. Click and use that here. Again, on the next couple of slides, I've got the office lease template. We've got another one for multifamily, and then we'll down at in the resource tab here, we'll have an industrial and retail one for you as well. Okay, highest and best use. When we're looking at the site, and let's assume that the site is vacant and we're trying to determine the value of the land. Highest and best use, by definition, is really what generates the most money to the property. And so this is an appraisal definition that we use in the appraisal industry. And if a site is vacant, we want to look at what building would we build that would generate the most value. And conversely, if we have an existing building, that building may generate the most value. It may not. It may be an interim use. It may have to be redeveloped. It may need to be tore down. If it's an old industrial building, but the zoning is now multifamily and you can build a 10-story apartment building, that may be the highest and best use. It just depends. Conversion of office into retail, old office building that maybe needs to be retail. It depends on your market. So you need to look at what generates the most value, what lease rates would generate are really the strongest in that market. Compare a hypothetical building that would be built in that area, and does it justify building that cost? So highest and best use analysis, when we look at it, there's 4 tests, and we look at, is it legally permissible? Obviously, it has to be legally permissible. Can we build it today? Is it zoned appropriately? Are there any legal issues in and around it? Is it physically possible? Is the property oddly shaped? You know, are utilities? Is there something that's an obstacle to building on that site? And then really one of the key tests is it financially feasible? Do the dollars justify building that building in today's market? Or if we built it after we do an income approach based on a future building, and we look at what those rents would justify, and then we go build it, if there isn't enough return to justify it, if the value doesn't equal, if the cost doesn't equal the value, then we have a problem. Then it's not the highest and best use. In that situation, in that case, really the highest and best use would be land only. If it doesn't justify building a building, if the current rents are well below what it would take to build that building based on construction costs in your market, then highest and best use is land only, or the old building that currently sits on the property and what it's currently generating. And then finally, does the plan maximize profitability? And this is a case where maybe you have an existing building that has some surplus land, some excess land that you could build on. Maybe the plan is that you need to expand the building. It's an industrial building on 3 acres and it's 50,000 square feet, and there's room to double in size to 100,000 square feet. So that would be the fully maximizable plan to generate the most profit, the highest and best use of the property. So again, 4 tests for you to look at, specifically when you're looking at land, also with existing buildings, good test for you to look at. Rent versus buy analysis. After we've done these tests and we've done our demographics and our top-down approach, we're going to look and say, hey, does it make sense for this tenant that's currently leasing the space to maybe buy a building, or they're a brand new business operator, and you can do a rent versus buy analysis. And this is really an unbiased analysis to see what is the best option for your client. You want to review the 4 benefits of owning real estate, cash flow, principal reduction, taxes, and appreciation. And the one mistake that I see a lot of tenants making that want to own a building is they don't wear both hats well. 2 hats. I'm a landlord and I'm a tenant. You may be a landlord and a tenant, but you might not be the best tenant for your own building. Now, maybe there's some other circumstances that make sense to do that. But you have to, if you're wearing both hats have to fit. And I tell that to a lot of my clients that want to buy their own building. And so you want to go through the 4 benefits of owning real estate, make sure that it makes sense, make sure that they're buying the property, and that if they were to leave the space after they've occupied it, that they could rent it out for a market rate that they're currently paying themselves based on the rent that's currently coming in. Does it make sense? Analyze the property as if they were not there. And if there's no tenant that would pay the rate that they're paying, then maybe it doesn't make sense for that tenant to buy that building. So again, you just want to look at this, analyze it, and make sure that you've taken all of those things into consideration. Other income opportunities. Again, we've talked about a few of these before. You could definitely do rent versus buy analysis for tenants. You can do survey analysis for people. You could do focus groups. I've been hired to do all of the above. Rental comparison studies, market analysis for outside investors. Big group comes to town, wants to build a large building. They need someone to tell them where the market is, do a rental survey in the market, do some type of focus group on what tenants are looking for or not looking for. All lots of options for you to generate other income than just selling and leasing in commercial real estate. So again, don't underestimate these as options. There are commercial real estate brokers that have left the industry and just made a very good living on other income opportunities. So look at all those opportunities, and I think that you'll find some. Research resources. Most of the demographics that come in are going to be coming in via county and state, and then the census, the national census. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS.gov, is going to have a variety of resources for you. And you can go to that site and pull down economic, demographic stuff from the latest census. And so right now it's 2018. We're a couple of years away from a census and getting that data. And so the data is a little old right now, dealing with 2010. So some market areas have additional forecasted demographics. So it depends on your area. You need to do a little bit of research. ESRI has a free trial. ArcGIS also is a pay service. Freedemographics.com has some great tools for you to be able to gather a lot of that data. There are lots of different options, and we've posted a variety of those options on our resource tab for you to be able to look at and research. But check with your local, state, and county and city, because there's probably going to be some specific numbers that you can get, demographics that you can get. There might even be a third-party service that's already gathered all of this data and has it. If you're close to a university or college, check with them, because odds are that someone's already gathered this data and they have it all available for you. So in summary, we've talked about the physical definition of the market. We've talked about doing regional neighborhood analysis, bringing that all the way down to the market, the sub-market that you're dealing with, location analysis, the site selection, looking at all the physical issues in and around the physical site, the building, the units, and then doing rental rate analysis, property sale analysis, highest and best use, those 4 tests that you're going to do for a brand new property or an old property that maybe needs to be transitioned. We're going to look at rent versus buy analysis. We did that, and then we gave you some research resources. So those are, that's That's a very brief overview of market analysis and site selection. Depending on the specific property that you're dealing with, may take you off a certain area. And so you want to make sure that you're addressing your client's needs and looking at what those are. There's a variety of other resources on our website, mynoi.com, so feel free to go there. And we've got some additional resources on site selection, and you can look at the case studies that we have and some of the resource tabs that we've got. But I encourage you to take your 4 case studies that we talked about in lesson 1, to take my 4 case studies, and I want you to go out and maybe pull some demographics, some information, look at your retail users, look at your local coffee shop, burger operation, whatever it might be, physical therapist, family therapist. Look at a 1, 3, 5 mile radius in and around there. What are the numbers showing you? Why is one area better or worse than another? Is there a lot of difference? What are the average daily traffic, the ADT, in those areas for retailers? Find out where your major transportation corridors are and what the traffic counts are and where they're growing and maybe where they're declining, and understand that market. That will help you better suit and sell and help tenants buy investment property. So with that, we conclude lesson 4, and we'll see you on the other side.